And welcome back to another episode here at Blue Duck Fantasy Football. Happy to have you. I'm here once again with Matt, who refuses to change his shirt, even though it is clearly a different day. Matt, how you doing today?
I am still doing well. How about you?
I am doing great. We're going to talk about wide receivers, rookie wide receivers, where you should be drafting them in your rookie draft, where you shouldn't be drafting them. We're going to talk about some sleepers and go over the tiers. So let's get this kicked off with the big three wide receivers from the draft. Matt, name them off.
We've got Jamar Chase, we've got Devonta Smith, and we've got Jalen Waddle.
All three of them being drafted in the first round. Chase going to Cincinnati, Smith going to Philly, and Waddle going to Miami. Matt, who is your favorite of the three and why?
My favorite of the three is Jamar Chase. I know that some people may not necessarily agree that the landing spot is all that good, and it's really not because they've got T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd there. But yeah, I still think the talent there is just so high that I think he's going to be their wide receiver number one this year.
I don't disagree with that. The reason I don't have him as my top pick, I have Davonte Smith, and I'll talk about him in a minute, is because I think for the next 2 years, his ceiling is capped. So T. Higgins looked great last year. Tyler Boyd has been consistent top 20 guy. He just gets it done. And I do think that Jamar Chase will probably be the number one guy. But if you look at it from a targets perspective, that's a lot of targets for three guys compared to Devonta Smith, who is going to be sharing with who? Rager, Greg Ward, Travis Fulgham. I mean, I still am not off of Jalen Rager, but I've never been on J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Anybody who drafted him was not listening to our channel. I think that the volume he gets, I get the quarterback isn't an ideal situation, but they're college friends, just like Jamar and Joey B. I think Devonta Smith has the higher ceiling in the next 3 years than Jamar Chase does, but I do think Jamar Chase has the higher floor for the next 3 years. That's how I look at these players, and I'm going with ceiling. I'm going with Devonta Smith. I love the tape. I'm not overly afraid of him being 175 pounds. I assume he'll have some McDonald's in the offseason and maybe get up to 185 and still play well at that weight. So let's talk about the third guy here, Jalen Waddle, going to Miami. Not the best landing spot, but it could be a fantastic landing spot next year. Will Fuller on a on 1 year contract. Parker, I believe, has an out after next year, so they could probably get rid of him fairly quickly. He could be the number one starting next year. There's some Tyreek Hill comparisons. Matt, your thoughts on Waddle?
Also reunited with a college quarterback.
Yes, all three of these guys.
Yes. So that thing went, but yeah, Jalen Waddle is, and I know, and we've talked about it a little bit, but he's reminds me of Tyreek Hill. He's just super fast. Like you said, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of competition, especially after this year. Jasicki's good. I like him, but Fuller on and off the field, on PEDs half the time apparently. Devonta Parker just not that sold on. I like Waddle. I think Tua's going to take a big step forward this year as well. So I wouldn't buy what happened last year with Tua not being the best passer. I think no offseason, the hip surgery, everything like that. Things shake up well for Jalen Waddle. Again, I don't think it's terrible if you want to take Smith ahead of him, but I have Waddle slightly ahead.
So let's talk about where these guys are going. Again, I think Waddle is, to me, the guy with the highest chance to bust. He's had the numbers in college weren't that impressive. The tape looks nice. He's got a lot of speed. He played injured down the stretch, and he could be that Tyreek Hill. He could also be the Mecole Hardman, I guess it would be the other way. I'm sure there's some worse comparisons that I can say for speed guys, but off the top of my head, that's what I'm coming up with.
But John Ross.
Pardon?
How about John Ross?
John Ross, yeah, exactly. He could be John Ross, right? He could be that speedster that just doesn't work out. So very good comp. Thanks, Matt. So let's look at where to draft these guys. We have Jamar Chase as our number one, even though neither of us have him as the number one player. I have him fourth, you have him second, but he falls to the number one spot. So he is a top 5 pick for sure. Devonta Smith, I have second. You have seventh. So he's kind of more of the mid-first. In drafts, you're usually going to probably see Chase and Pitts go before Smith, as well as Harris is going to go. Javonte Williams and Etienne could go as well.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a top 7 pick to get either of these guys. This is a 7-player draft. We've talked about this privately. Let's talk about it publicly. There are 3 wide receivers, 3 running backs, and 1 tight end that go in the top 7. They should be going in the top 7 in every draft. No excuse. I don't care how desperate you are for a quarterback. There are 3 quarterbacks that you can get into the late second round. So top 7 pick is what you need to get one of these. Where you take him within that top 7 is up to you. But the consensus is Jamar Chase goes 1 or in the top 3. And then in the latter half, so I don't know how they have Trevor Lawrence this high on Fantasy Pros. That guy should really be dropping. Basically, Smith and Waddle tend to go back-to-back. They did in the one draft that I did. So you kind of get to pick your favorite there. But you just need to sneak into the top 6 or 7 to get one of these players in most cases. Well worth it to me because after that, there's a drop-off for sure. So let's talk about these Tier 2 guys. Matt, let's start off with Rashad Bateman, a first-round pick going to the Baltimore Ravens. Very good player, not the best landing spot. What do you have to say about Bateman?
Yeah, I'm just going to quickly jump backwards on those top 3. If you're like Ben and you have Smith ahead of guys like Chase, even Waddle, and you want to take Smith at number 1 or 2, don't be afraid to trade back. You can get something else with him, and you'll still likely get Smith if you fall back to like 5. Say.
Just don't trade out of the top 7. Just
right.
As long as you stay in the top 7, you should be able to get a very good player.
Yeah, So I just want to throw that in there. But yeah, Bateman, like you said, very good player, very good talent, can make a lot of plays for you. Do you buy that he's going to do this with Lamar Jackson? We still think that he's going to be pretty solid. We've both got him top 5 wide receiver in this class. Late first round pick for real life too, but for rookie drafts, he's worth it there. I think there was other spots that he would have been higher for me. Like I've got him as number 5. I may have put him ahead of Moore if he had been maybe taken in Green Bay, for example.
So just to point out, like currently on Fantasy Pros, which is the combined rankings of a lot of experts or so-called experts, Jalen Waddle 8, Rashad Bateman 9. Let's just assume that Trevor Lawrence isn't in here, and there is a drop-off from Waddle to Bateman.
Yeah.
There's a gap there. So if you have this pick and you're forced to take Bateman at 9, your best bet is to trade back because there are 5 guys in the second tier that we like that are all fairly similar to Bateman. One of those guys is Elijah Moore, who has some of the best hands I've seen. Whenever I was watching his film, the ball was thrown his way, I knew he was coming down with it, and he did not disappoint. He goes to the Jets, which got the man in the back last year, who I very much like as an outside receiver. He's going to play the inside. He's going to take over for Crowder, who's probably going to be cut. He's not going to get $11 million. He's going to be a $1 million dead cap hit. They also have Corey Davis on the outside. They have given Zach Wilson a lot of weapons, and Elijah Moore is kind of like a safety blanket. You don't need to have him go deep. He can run slant routes. He can do everything, but you can have him be that guy catching the short passes for the quick passing so that Zach Wilson doesn't get destroyed. I really like Elijah Moore. I'm not worried that it's a crowded Jets area with a rookie quarterback. I think in time, Corey Davis will probably be out of there, and it'll be Mims and Moore, and it'll be a good situation with Zach Wilson. Matt, anything to add to that, or do you want to talk about Terrence Marshall going to Carolina?
No, I like Moore a lot. I had him, as you can see right there on your screen, I had him ahead of Bateman there. And he is the next wide receiver after the top 3 for me. So yeah, you did a good job of selling him. Crushing poor Jamison Crowder though. I don't see how he sticks with that team, which might not be a bad thing, honestly.
Yep, just going to keep reminding you, though, that if you have that 9th pick and you're kind of stuck, or the 8th pick, trade back 4 or 5 spots. You can get one of these 5 receivers that are all pretty solid. Again, Rondale Moore, not my favorite of the group, but these other guys like Terrence Marshall, who, fantastic, doesn't go to the best spot, but it's not bad either. Like, they use Curtis Samuel there. This is a different type of player than Curtis Samuel, but they could move more to the inside and have Marshall on the outside because they don't have a tight end. They've never had a tight end since Olsen left. So what are your thoughts on Marshall here?
Yeah, like you said, it's not the best spot, not the worst spot. Quarterback situation there, it's okay.
I like Darnold. I think that's a good quarterback situation.
Yeah, he's okay. Like, it's not like the best quarterback you'll ever get, but it's not terrible. I think it's an upgrade from Teddy, so it could have been worse there. That's my opinion on those two. Anyway, Marshall, yeah, pretty solid overall wide receiver. DJ Moore is on his 4th year now, I think. So, yeah, he could be out of there in a year or two. No, they picked up his 5th year, right? So, yeah, he's probably 2 years. Sorry?
Couple years, yeah, you got a couple years.
So 2 years, and Robbie Anderson's not going to hang around for that terribly long. Terrace Marshall will be the number 1 receiver here probably in
year 3
years. Yeah, so I think that's a good spot. Feel free to take him around late 1st, early 2nd. Something that we should have mentioned a little bit earlier. If you are at like spot 9 and you were mentioning trade back, if you are running back needy, grab one of those running backs because that is a big gap after Sermon and Carter and Gainwell are gone.
Yeah, absolutely. The drop off for the running backs, really, there's like 5-6 guys, and after that, it's like you're just throwing at handcuffs and hopefuls. So there's a lot more depth at wide receiver. If you are looking to grab a running back, even if you have to forego a type of talent like Terrace Marshall in order to drop to somebody like Amari Rogers, that's fine because the gap from the running back that you get there, say a Michael Carter to a Chuba Hubbard, is going to be large because Hubbard doesn't have a clear path to playing without an injury, whereas Michael Carter does. So Rondale Moore has an extensive injury history. I'm not big on him. He goes to a decent spot. There's really just Hopkins there that's established. I know they brought in A.J. Green, who looked pretty much done last year. Who knows what's going on with Fitzgerald, not officially retired or anything.
Christian Kirk
hasn't taken the reins to be the number 2 guy. They wanted him to. He just hasn't done it. He's probably going to be out after this year since this is his 4th year. And Andy Isabel is there who can kind of play a similar role to Rondale Moore with the speed. I'm more worried about the injuries. He's not a player that I would be excited about. I'd rather trade back. But if you are looking for somebody who is a boomer bust on your already good team, he's an all right pick.
Yeah, he's a good basketball type player for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Matt, why don't you talk about Kadarius Toney going to the Giants?
Yeah, this is a good player, but just the landing spot just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, I know that you don't really have a wide receiver that necessarily fits his mold there, but they brought in Kenny Galladay on a huge contract. I don't think they're going to cut Slayton or Shepard. They've got Evan Ingram there. They've got Saquon too. There's just too many weapons there that you can really justify taking Kadarius Toney in the 1st round in real life. And as well, he's high 2nd round pick for me. And like I said, the talent is there, and maybe eventually they move on from Sterling Shepard and Slayton, and he can get a little bit more field time. But I like the talent a lot more than I like the landing spot in this particular case. He's more like a gadgety type player. I thought something like Green Bay would have made a lot more sense for him.
All right, so let's move on to the tier 3 guys. And leading off is Amari Rogers, who went to a great spot with Green Bay, regardless of quarterback, as you were saying off video here, Matt, because he catches those short passes and it's tough to bring down. You don't need somebody who has that much talent in the quarterback position to get him the ball. You just get it to him and let him do what he does. I think there's great value here. Top 20 pick for us. So he's the first guy after that 2nd tier where you're getting that drop. But that drop from Amari Rogers to, say, a Rondale Moore or Kadarius Toney, compared to the drop from Kenneth Gainwell to the next running back, which will come off the board here, is a lot bigger. So if you're, again, as we've talked about, you're looking at running back, you need a running back, take a running back over a wide receiver because there's a lot more depth at wide receiver. Matt, Rogers?
Yeah, like you said, you kind of hit the nail on the head. We talked about it before. Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers, it doesn't matter for this guy. He can take the ball, and he goes, breaks tackles, quick player. He's a lot of different things that Green Bay can use. Matt LaFleur offense is going to specialize in something like this. I really like the landing spot. They traded up to get him. They like him too, so for sure he's late second round pick. If you can get him later than that, it's really going to be a good value, I think. A lot of comparisons made up to Randall Cobb, which I know that was a separate offense when Cobb was there, but he's a very similar player. So
yeah, it's that role.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to talk quickly about these tier 3 guys. We don't make this video too long. So we're talking about the speedsters. That's Dwayne Eskridge and Amari Brown. Both of them very fast, some lighter guys for their size. The big difference is one of them is 24 and the other one is 21. And going to ideally like a better position in Washington, since there's only one wide receiver spot there versus Seattle. I get Lockett's probably doesn't have that many more years left. And they've used the deep threat in Seattle very well with Russell Wilson. So there's definitely some value there, but I'll take Dwami over Eskridge all day. Matt, anything to add, or do you want to talk about Till and Wallace?
No, I mean, just with Brown there, it's still Ryan Fitzpatrick throwing him the ball, I think, this year, which is okay, but again, not really for his specialty. And I think Terry McLaurin is a very good deep threat too, so it just really didn't make a ton of sense for them to go with a similar type of player for me.
Well said.
Thank you.
Till and Wallace, also bad landing spot. Good talent, though.
Yeah, you keep throwing me these Ravens receivers, but yeah, same thing. If you had a better landing spot, I would have liked him a lot more. I know that the offensive coordinator, who I can't think of off the top of my head, but he was talking about yesterday, they're going to have a whole lot of different packages for these guys that they drafted, and we should expect big things. But he is somebody that I'm targeting more towards the, early third. Sorry, I'll say that I'm okay with taking Tylen, just because the talent is great. I don't know what this spells for non-rookie receiver Marquise Brown. They brought in 2 guys that can basically replace him. So.
Yeah, I think they play a bit of a different game. Like, I think Marquise Brown, to me, should have always been in the slot and kind of working out of there, but they just didn't have anybody on the outside other than like a Miles Boykin or a Willie Snead. I think they've improved that situation, but again, bad landing spot. What's the volume they're going to be there? It's a 3,000-yard passer. That's not going to feed a Marquise Brown. It's not going to feed a Bateman and him as well. Like, it's don't forget Mark Andrews is there as well. So let's talk about a couple guys who went to some great landing spots and are not as talented as Till and Wallace was, but fantastic landing spots. And we're talking about these 2 men, Nico Collins and ARSB. Matt, who do you want to talk about first?
Let's go Nico Collins. Just when teams in general trade up to grab somebody, it just catches my eye a little bit more as well. It must mean that somebody likes it there. And it's not Bill O'Brien running the show anymore, so it probably made sense to somebody with a little bit of football smarts there. He's a good player, big.
Prototypical wide receiver.
Yeah, Brandon Cooks is he's good, but he's different style and he's not healthy usually. Somebody's got to catch balls there. Why not Nico Collins? Take a flyer on him early third round. I have no issues with that.
Yeah, and we have these guys basically back-to-back in our rankings. 11-13 and 14-15 for you. I just have Eskridge in between them. They're both guys where you're betting on the landing spot over the talent. Like, who's in Detroit that's going to scare you at wide receiver? Tyrell Williams? No, he's not scary. There's no one there long-term that scares you. He's basically in line to be the number 1 guy in short order. Same with Nico Collins. I don't know what Cooks has left. Both these guys have a clear path to being the top receiver on a less than great team. We're assuming Watson isn't playing, because if Watson's playing, it's a different story. But yeah.
Jared Goff isn't that good. That's one thing maybe about ARSB, and TJ Hawkinson will be their top receiver. But
he'll be their top guy for the foreseeable future. So those are basically the guys that go into the third round here. There are some other guys like Amir Smith, Marset that Minnesota took. There's not much depth for the Vikings at wide receiver. So again, you're taking somebody who, not the most fascinating player, but decent player, who went to a great landing spot. And then you have some guys that, that Matt likes because they took a second-round pick on Atwell. But let's talk about some sleepers, some guys that you can get in your fourth round of your draft that you like, and we'll talk about one that I like. Matt, who is your pick for this?
Sorry, I'm still laughing at Tutu. Josh Palmer, I think, is just a little bit underrated on the board here. Maybe not even so much for this year. It's something like I think Mike Williams is out of there after this year. I'm
definitely
really certain that he'll be out of there. Justin Herbert's an up-and-coming guy. I mean, Keenan Allen doesn't have a lot left on him probably either. It's a great landing spot, I think. And he's a good player. I mean, he's not gonna burn you for he's not the best, like the fastest guy in the world, but I think he's just very solid. I didn't see him drop a lot of balls when I was watching him, so I think he's just and he won't get I don't know what the right word is, but he won't get pushed around. He's physical enough.
He's physical. He's not a tiny little guy. And there are a lot of tiny little guys in this draft. So if you get yourself a guy with size like Josh Palmer, 6'2", 210, they're few and far between. Another guy, Nico Collins. There aren't that many guys that are in that, like Rashad Bateman fits that mold. But after that, there's maybe 5 guys and Seth Williams that fit that. So yeah, good landing spot, decent talent. My pick is Marquez Stevenson, who went to Buffalo. I don't believe he was drafted to Buffalo. I believe he was a UDFA.
I believe so, yeah.
I like the tape. I like what he can do. He is a bit older at 23, but I like the situation there. It's fairly open. I know they got Sanders, but I'm not thinking about this year. I'm just thinking about Gabriel Davis flashed at times last year, but they showed that they use several wide receivers. They're not a running team, and I like his opportunity to be a player in a couple years. So he's the guy that I'm stashing, getting either in the 4th round or grabbing after the draft. Another interesting name, Desmond Patrick. There's not that many players in Tennessee, so good landing spot. But again, a little bit of an older player. Mm-hmm. Matt, you have anything to add to these wide receivers that we talked about today, or is it time to wrap it up?
No, just what we've hammered away, that this is a pretty deep group, so don't reach too high once you get past those top 3.
Yeah, don't be scared to trade back continuously. Like if you're continually getting value and you end up okay, so we're in the the late first, and you don't want to spend your pick. You don't need a running back, and you don't want to spend your wide receiver pick on one of these guys in the second tier that we have, the Moores, the Batemans, Marshalls, and you trade back, and you get yourself a second for next year and a third for this year. That's a pretty good deal, because in the 3rd round, you could be looking at getting yourself an Amari Rogers still. And even after that, there's more depth into Nico Collins. This is a deep position this year. You can see by our top 50, we're taking some of these wide receivers in the middle of the 3rd round that we're still fairly excited about. And then our sleepers are going into the 4th round. So there is a lot of depth at this position. Don't feel like you need to take that player at that spot, trade back, just get somebody in that tier or even in the lower tier, because the gap isn't that big.
Yeah, and just one more quick point here is that if you've seen us in the past, when it comes to drafting, we're more about trying to get running backs, and with all these wide receivers, they're just so good that's why they're all so high. So we're not big wide receiver truthers. It's just happens to be how this draft class ended up going.
Yeah, good point. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up. Thanks for watching. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one. That's it.